It was put to me in stark terms last night by the outgoing Cathaoirleach of Clare County Council. For a person reliant on the old age pension, a single person living alone, if they buy nothing else for 3 weeks, they can now buy a half a tank of fuel. That's not sustainable now, and it's certainly not sustainable into the future. We constantly hear from the government that we have very close to full employment, and that is a measure of the government's economic success. Yet we have people working full-time in Ireland, many working full-time in Ireland, who at the end of the week can't make ends meet. We sometimes even have families with 2 people working, and if they have children, they can't make ends meet. That is not sustainable because of the rising cost of living. It would be attractive to think that a mini budget alone would solve this, or an emergency budget alone. I do accept, Minister, that throwing money at the problem through social welfare alone is not going to solve this. It will, for certain cohorts, particularly for people who have no other source of income, it will have to be part of the solution. Certainly there will have to be, I think, large tax credits along the lines of those that are in the UK for childcare. That will have to be part of the solution, and I think it will have to be part of the solution very quickly. But we do need to try to stop the cost of living rising further, and that's a very difficult thing to do, because for decades now, Cathaoirleach, we've heard that we are the most globalised economy in the world. So we have very few tools at our disposal, and it is a very difficult time. But we have to look at what has been successful. Up to now in Ireland, inflation, which is running at increasingly unsustainable levels, has been driven by energy costs and housing costs. Now in France, they did manage to stem inflation a little bit by capping the cost of energy. That was facilitated by the fact that France didn't follow the folly of Germany in closing their nuclear power stations before they had an alternative fuel supply. We of course don't, but we do, like France, have an energy sector which is largely state-owned. And I do think, Minister, you're going to have to look at capping energy costs in Ireland to cap the rising cost of living. We're also going to have to look at how, if the interest rates are rising, that it's not passed on to tenants who are renting. And that's without even discussing food inflation hasn't to date been a major contributor in Ireland, unlike other European countries. But I've repeatedly asked the government to put measures in place to try to combat or lower the input costs, which if that's not done, they'll have to be passed on by farmers unless they are going to go broke. And if they go broke, then we're going to have fuel shortages. So those input costs are going to have to be passed on. To date, there haven't been any measures put in place. So if not an emergency budget, then I would ask the government to put plans in place now to try to stall the inevitable increase in the cost of fuel, in the cost of energy, in the cost of housing, and in the cost of food next year. Because unless measures are put in place now to stop that, throwing money at it in the budget next October will be inadequate and will not help people. Thank you.